Welcome to Land Language, the podcast transforming landscapes from toxic to regenerative. We're your hosts, Brit from Blueprint Earth,
and co-host Bethany from Bethany Ridmark Landscapes.
We explore beautiful, functional design through conversations with scientists, vendors, contractors, and designers who are changing the industry.
Whether you're in the field or at the drafting table, join us as we explore regenerative practices that care for people, place, and planet.
Let's dig in. Good morning, David. We have such a pleasure to host you this morning. I've been dreaming of this conversation. I've been excited about this, not just because I appreciate you as a human and I've loved getting to know you through Dan Martell's coaching program, but also through the fact that so many people like us who have these landscape construction and these trades businesses are being approached by people like you. And I think of you as like the good guy. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to talk to you about like the process that this looks like and really just kind of give people a reckoning of how to handle and manage this idea of being acquired. Because right now we know with AI that our industry is actually a pretty great place to be. So managing this in a smart way is a really important move for our listeners.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to be here as well. This is something that I think we're going to have a lot of different angles that we can approach this from and unpack it. And I can't wait to dig in with you guys. Pun intended.
Construction, here we come. Well, and for my part, I'm in landscape architecture, so we're running more of a design studio shop, but this concept of what it takes to take care of a working operation of labor force and quality and operations being sustainable. I'm fascinated. So I get to be here in my ask questions, poke around. I want to hear it and see how those relevancies cross both the trade and the design worlds, and specifically just what it takes to take care of a strong and supported workforce far into the future. I'm sorry, robots aren't building our environment yet in the way that I want them to ever be. I mean, human beings crafting and taking care of the places that we care about. I want to see that kind of quality construction taken care of, and it takes a healthy company to be able to sustain that in the long run and have people that have knowledge to be able to carry it through many, many seasons of practice and growth and relevancy for construction and for quality. So that's my little eavesdropping in on this entire conversation and being here today. I'm jazzed. I can't wait to hear it.
Awesome.
So, David, I want people to know your heart, like where you started in this. I know you started in HR, which I think says a lot about the approach that you have to acquiring and working with business owners. And I want to know what's important to you, like why you started doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grow up. And if I figure it out, I'll have to come back and tell everybody. But what I did find was there was this thread of wanting to help people. And I encountered the world of business and realized that there was an opportunity to help people on a professional scale within the context of business. And so that's HR. And I got to do that, and what I found is it's impossible for me, at least, to separate thriving professionally and personally. It's really messy and there's a lot of overlap. And so, moving through my career, I went through kind of big corporates and then I got into really small startups. Ultimately, I decided, man, that was a great experience. I want to start building for myself. What's that path? And I landed on the business of buying businesses. And I've connected with so many business owners that just don't know anything about selling their business. They've become experts in building their business, running their business. And I think they have this unfair weight on their shoulders. Like, I should be an expert. I should know. And that's just not realistic. And so then I had another opportunity to help business owners, not just in buying their business, transitioning on to their next adventure or into retirement or whatever the next stage of life is, but also then this education component that I've started investing tremendously in.
I can really relate to that as somebody who was an artist, as a landscape designer, who became an owner, who was doing all of the things, and then had to learn how to not just be an operator, but actually be an owner, right? And start to work on the business. And for a lot of tradesmen, that's the story, right? And it's hard to go from operator to owner and like operator to CEO. And I see the value in working with somebody like you and you to like help scale a business and keeping the business in the place where the heart is still thriving. And when I like read your bio, right, I see that you had a 98% retention of employees in one of your acquisitions. And that I think is the dream. That is that seems like a statistic that doesn't usually exist, right? Like we think of every acquisition, we think of layoffs. And I think that's what most people think of when they think of, okay, I'm going to entrust the next person with my business. Well, they're going to fire my team and then hire robots, right? Or hire AI. And when you find these companies that have these really rich ethos, which are the ones that you're looking for, you see that scaling them is a really good idea for their industry. So when I think about like that ethos and I think about you, I want to know a little bit more about how you got to the point that you had a 98% retention rate after an acquisition with actually a pretty huge amount of employees.
Yeah. I can't take credit for all of it, but I'm happy to share everything I learned along the way, including the pieces that I helped with. One thing, again, when you start with understanding that you need people to deliver on this vision of yours that you're building, and you have that mindset of keeping them in focus, then you design from the outset an experience that's not just about a business transaction, exchanging ownership for, money or compensation. And I think that's been what's really impactful. One of the early transactions that I was a part of, not the big one you're referencing, but Toyota bought the last company I was an employee in, and they also acquired the engineering team from Lyft. You're familiar with Uber and Lyft, their advanced engineering team. And there was a massive loss of talent and people. They were really unhappy. It did not go well. And even the people that stayed were kind of detractors, right? They were highly dissatisfied, even though they were well compensated and all these other things to stay. It was in sharp contrast to my company coming in, where we were excited, we saw potential, possibility, and our transaction was very different from theirs, economically. But I think even if you look at the people that have stayed on and have moved up into the leadership and all these things, like is couldn't be further apart on the spectrum. And so going into subsequent interactions, I was like, how do we keep that in the center? Like that's a great way to win is like keeping people in focus, transparency, communication, and the proper incentive alignment, not just throwing money at people to help to chain them to the business. And that I think that's what made that big acquisition you're referencing, where a 500 person company was able to acquire 1,100 people that were previously competitors and bring them together and integrate them and ensure that everybody came over as part of that transaction.
That seems like incredible leadership and incredible culture building to be able to do that, right? And I'm kind of guessing, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm kind of guessing that that's really what you bring to the table is that leadership and cultural building piece of acquiring a business.
It is, and it's also just that perspective to the table too, right? Because there is an executive team and a culture that existed previously to me coming in that had really good ideas and one of the best things that they did, I think, even before the deal was inked, they were laying a solid foundation that we were able to build a lot of success on. And one of those things is those leaders went from location to location across the US and recorded welcome videos with team members. And so one of the things that, the moment that the announcement goes out that, hey, we got bought or, there's a transaction going on, often the first reaction is fear and uncertainty. But we were able to immediately pivot into playing this video of like, okay, so we're getting bought out. And here's a video from the leadership team of the company that's buying us, and they wanted to share a message with you. And you're seeing these other team members and things, and kind of connecting the dots on who this organization is, what they care about, to immediately start highlighting how this enables growth and where we're headed next, to minimize. There's always going to be that fear and uncertainty, but to minimize it. And so again, I can't take full credit for it, but that is the perspective I bring to the table, and the lens, and the advocacy too, because it can get lost in the numbers and the logistics. And so continually bringing back their focus, and you're like, hey, we started strong. Let's finish strong. Let's deliver on what we promised, not just say the right things from the outset. Those kinds of things
Hmm.
is what I bring.
I think that would be what I would be looking for in an acquisition, honestly, right? Because we spend so much time building our teams and loving our clients and making sure that love is like the core of kind of the continuation feels really important to me, and profit. And those two things kind of, making sure that they are equal in a dream world. Um, so when I think of the tradesfolk, and I know you've had your favorite acquisition, if I remember correctly, is a general contracting business. Can you tell me a little bit about what that looked like from an owner's perspective of like you approaching them? And where I want to get to is also knowing about what it maybe shouldn't look like, just so people can kind of have a little bit of a understanding of like when somebody comes towards them, what are some red flags and what are some green flags?
Yeah. Well, I just want to clarify. So I was a part of growing Pro.com and scaling that, and they did exit, but they were acquired by a company called Opendoor, that is a giant player in real estate. So I didn't actually acquire a construction company, but I got to build it from the inside out in such a way that it could be acquired. And that's actually, I think, foundational to a lot of the coaching that I do with business owners is like, hey, even if you don't plan to sell your construction company or your company, period, you should build it to sell. There are so many benefits to doing that, including your team feeling supported and not like the rug got pulled out from underneath them, including resiliency in an economic downturn, including profit and all these other things. So that's foundational. But yes, I loved my experience of getting to build a construction company. And our the mandate that I was brought in under is we want to expand geographically as quickly as possible, and we are open to whatever that looks like. So if you want to go in and acquire a GC to establish operations in a new state, we're open to that. If you just want to find and hire that person, that individual who's going to land in Denver, and we can assemble a team around them, we're open to that outcome as well. And so there was a lot of freedom in how I got to build things out for Pro.com. And you asked about, kind of red flags. One thing that is important to understand, and again, you should be clear on what's important to you as a business owner, whether you're selling or buying, what's important to you. Is it legacy? Is it taking care of your customers? Is it your reputation? Is it maximizing the exit value because that's your retirement, or you have a new venture that you're going to need capital for? Getting clear on those from the outset is going to be really important. And um, engaging with buyers that aren't aligned on that would be one of the red flags that I would highlight with it, where you're thinking, again, I've heard this from both of you already, legacy, care for my team, those kinds of things. And you're talking to a potential buyer that's like dollars, cents, market share, cutting for efficiency. That is a part of a transaction, but if that's their primary focus, it's not likely going to lead to a positive outcome.
Walk us through the process of like somebody reaches out. Ideally, it's somebody like you. What are the next steps that people should kind of see coming that they get to kind of create boundaries and checkpoints?
So when I reach out, I'm asking for an initial opportunity to connect with you as the business owner and learn the story. I love the story. How did you get started? Are you a serial entrepreneur? Is this your one and only, or do you have multiple things that you've got going on. Talk to me about, like some of the challenges that you've navigated. I want to understand, where did this come from, and how did it come to be in its current state? And then we start unpacking some more logistical things. Um, Things like, have you thought about what the ideal transaction is? What are you going to be doing after the sale? Assuming everything goes swimmingly well, have you thought about what's next for you? And again, this is to help nudge these people into sometimes thinking about this for the first time. Been so busy building, they haven't actually thought, like, gosh, what am I going to do? Is my identity entirely encased in this business? Which is pretty common. Um, so starting to tease that out. The next big thing, though, is like we need to start looking at the high level financial performance. What are the general trends? And so when I talk to business owners and like, okay, David, I haven't even thought about selling, but like, what's the number one thing I need to do early or first? Start getting your financials in order. Like, make sure that you're filing your taxes, or that your P&L is kind of reflective of what's actually going on. That's a great place to start, because any prospective buyer or investor or bank, again, if you never decide to sell, you still want these options, are going to want to see that. And so starting to clean those up and consolidate and pull those together is going to be really helpful.
I once upon a time heard that a buyer is really excited if you're doing an increase of 25% a year and you become actually somebody who somebody would want to buy. Is that true? Or what makes you buyable, purchasable?
Yeah, there's a lot of different kinds of buyers, and there's a buyer for every kind of company, right? But the thing that is going to attract the most number of buyers and give you the most optionality, I would argue, isn't growth. And I have a contrarian take on growth and
I'm
profit. And
excited to hear that actually.
remind me, I'll circle back to it. The key things that make your business viable is, again, an investor, a buyer, is looking through the lens of risk. And the risk can often come down to, in small businesses, often owner dependency. It comes down to customer concentration. Like, you'll even hear owners brag about this. We got this customer, they're amazing. We worked for them for 12 years. Like, they do 90% of our revenue is through them.
That's scary.
That's terrifying, right? A bank won't even lend it if it's more than 20%, right? So those are kinds of things where you might think it's great, and you have healthy growth, healthy margins, all these things, and it's like, well, sorry, it's not fundable. I can't I can't bring that risk on. And vendors and suppliers is another one that is surprising to sometimes. It's like, oh, they've always taken care of us. Oh, but it's on a handshake. We don't have a formal contract. And I can't assume that because they like working with you guys, they're going to want to work with the new owner. So that it all comes down to risk, and how do we mitigate that? So things that reduce dependency on you as the owner, on one or two key employees is kind of like the next tier, on a vendor, on a customer, those kinds of issues is really what makes your business viable.
I want to hear the contrarian take on the growth piece as being the the most valuable or the shiny object that people are after. I get a little allergic to the not a little, a lot allergic to the grow, 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 big, 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 take over. And here we are in 21st century America where the bright and shiny thing for everyone is yeah, venture capital swoops in, takes over something, wrings it dry, every last ounce of profit, and then you're left with this kind of limp, dead, lifeless thing. Value is a team that has a shared set of visions and values, and the pieces of that work that come out in the day to day and the client service. They're bringing a health to the world, to our communities, to the places that we're operating in. And how does that translate to the business that we want to grow and care for? And then looking for the buyers that respect that and have that lens to recognize that the value is more than just the profit driving piece of this entity, but it also is the spirit and the soul of what you've, as a business owner, spent your like life energy creating, that you care about and you want it to sustain into the next generation, which is what we do in the land. Anyway, that's my big long question for you, and I really want to hear what you have to say.
I love it. I'll try to unpack as much of that as I can. I guess one thing that I would start with, my contrarian take on revenue, profits, more of it being always better. I want to tell you a story about a business owner I'm working with in Michigan, and he has this product line that I was looking at, and I said, we'll call him Andy. Andy, tell me about this. He said, well, it's a product line that we like, our customers like, and it's something that is really novel. Nobody else is doing it. Great. You need to 3x it or cut it next week because you have a full-time team member dedicated to this. It sells almost nothing, and it's not beyond the team members is requiring resources that aren't sustainable, and it's not even paying for itself. Actually, you're losing money by offering this. And so it's a classic example of like more revenue streams, more product doesn't equal better for the business. And actually it was dragging his business down. And so I'm like, I don't care either way. Show me how you're going to make this profitable and additive, or we have to be honest and cut that. The same extends to many other businesses who, like, again, try to extend themselves too far geographically, or again, bringing on more customers just for the sake of more customers, but they can't actually support and offer that service authentically and in a manner of integrity. And ultimately, while dollars are coming in, you're churning customers. And again, so I am with you on the sustainable piece of it, and that's where the contrarian take comes in. It's like not all revenue, not all profit is good. One of the most interesting conversations, and I should probably connect you guys. I was chatting with somebody on a podcast interview whose focus is sustainability. And she comes more from, the environmental, socio economic perspective, but there's tremendous overlap. And I agree. I agree. There is nothing less sustainable or good for our economy than kind of the current private equity model of buying companies, bundling them together, juicing them, and selling them to a bigger fish upstream. I think it's tremendously destructive. And so that is exactly why I'm positioning myself kind of on the other end of the spectrum of buying businesses where legacy matters to those owners and keeping that at the forefront as we go forward, because I like small local options. I don't want, if my dog's sick, I don't want to go to the cookie cutter veterinarian clinic that is the result of private equity buying all the small veterinary clinics. I want somebody that's running their own shop, and like if it's after hours, like they're like, you know what, we can flex because I'm the owner of this. I'm not beholden to some board or something, like I'm going to help you. And that makes, I think, a tremendous difference in our economy, our communities and neighborhoods. And again, I think is key as, these baby boomers are exiting the economy, and many of them are business owners. The stat that I saw is $14 trillion is going to trade hands in the next 10 years. If we rely on private equity and these big firms, buying those companies to as kind of the way to bridge that transition, I think we're in a world of hurt. And so there's not just a financial opportunity to buy a company that's profitable and leverage that. There's a responsibility to help these owners transition to retirement, to make sure that what they've built over years and decades, they get to enjoy the fruit of that labor. And again, keep options and small local businesses and jobs and all of these things connected to those communities.
Because this is literally the reason why I was like, David, you have to come and talk because I want you to be heard and I want people to know that you're an option. When I think about that as somebody who is interested in building my business, not to sell, but to have the option to sell, even just this like mindset play where you kind of help business owners think about their models, think about what they're doing well and how to kind of package it up to do even better. A lot of people right now talk about in construction, they're like high, medium, low pricing, right? And it's just like option A, option B, and option C, and kind of different packages that get people to sell well. And when I think of you, I think it's like, I'm kind of like, I want to work with David so he can like audit my company and look at like what I'm doing well and what I'm doing wrong and look at, margins and look at people's goals and our personal goals and kind of the whole holistic ecosystem of what happens when you treat the people of a business as the ecosystem of a business. And I think that's something that like I've learned from Dan Martell's coaching and Tony Robbins coaching is your team's goals are your goals, right? And it's about like creating a mindset of the team of like we're all in this together. It's not really top down. It's systems and organization that are built by a team with some really smart business acumen that I think you really bring to the table. And when I think of you, I think of your kind of helping people build all of that to be able to be scalable in an even bigger way.
Well, thank you. That's high praise. And I love, one of the things that is challenging is being able to recognize the potential of a business and the owner doesn't share that vision or can't see it for themselves. And so it's always tremendously energizing to connect with owners like you who are open to possibility, open to looking at things from a different perspective, and then get to grow in a new and exciting direction. So thank you for that. I think the one thing that was standing out to me as you were asking that question, and I'll relate it back to your work, is that yes, you can absolutely be this wonderfully nurturing environment and create a wonderful culture where people thrive and excel and are engaged and are solving problems that they want to, they're being challenged in ways that they want to be challenged in. But it doesn't mean that it's always going to be that for that person or that everybody's a fit. And so that like not all greenery in that garden is helpful and you have to weed it out and remove it. And it might serve something for a time, but it actually, we need to make space for something else. And when I encounter business owners that have that heart for people, one trap they get into is that, well, loyalty is really important to me. And so we have this, individual that's been with us for years, decades, whatever, and we're just never going to get rid of them, or we couldn't ever get rid of them because that's not um, loyal or good for them. And I would challenge that assumption and that mindset. And I think Dan does a wonderful job of this. I want to support them going somewhere where they're actually going to succeed and thrive. And that's not a bad thing. And that's not like, yes, build a strong culture, build a great place for people to thrive, but it's not about them. It's about bringing the right people that can deliver those outcomes and that values alignment together to solve a problem. And if they can't, then we're going to support them going elsewhere. And so I think that's a difficult balance for people. There's a spectrum and people are kind of polarized, right? Like it's all about the dollars and cents and, you're here today, gone tomorrow if you don't perform versus like, gosh, I really care about people and I want them to be engaged and I just want to make this work. And they've been with me for years. So I couldn't possibly, and that also is not truly, I don't think, good for you, the business or them.
Absolutely. And I think about one of the things that we implemented in the last year, because it's really been like a year where I went from like artist to owner, right? And I've been practicing that for like a year and 2 months. So I'm still a baby in all of this. I will admit that. But one of the things that I implemented that was really hard for my team to receive, that I think is a healthy way to do what you're talking about, is implemented KPIs. And so people can hire and fire themselves. They can get their raises. It's not on tenure, it's based on performance. And it's loving. And like the way that they were delivered was like with the I believe in you, you can do this. Here's like your high, medium, low. Here's where your raise comes. Here's where your bonus comes. And like if you don't meet these in 3 months, here's what we're talking about. We're talking about, we're talking about firing. We're talking about not because we don't love you, but because we need you to pay for yourself and generate profit. And I like as an owner, like I thought I delivered that really well. And like my team cried because it was stressful, right? To get a new set of rules. But now that it's been months that we've been implementing this, like it was just yesterday that we had a team meeting and people were like, I hit my numbers 3 months in a row. And I'm like, woo, you know?
Nice.
And then she's like, one of my team members like, that means that I get a raise soon. And I was like, yeah, it does. And that's so fun. But what's happened is like they've both become hungry for sales. Like my two designers who I'm talking about in this scenario, like they're like, how do I take on more sales? And do you know what I want to get out of as an owner is doing all of the sales. Um, and so like seeing that kind of shift, that like that empowerment shift was so big and so cool because I wasn't always just being like, oh my gosh, we got payroll, we've got to like figure out like when are we billing that customer? We got to make sure that they're billed. They are in ownership of that, right? And it takes me out of the operations more and more and more to like pass and empower. And honestly, people are empowered by money, right? I think that's a big part of why they come to work is so that they can have their lifestyle at home. And so like tying their performance to money and their actions to money with rewards, as well as, you know, this is what happens when you don't hit your numbers. I think that's honestly a really compassionate and kind thing to do. I always say clarity is kindness.
Hmm. I am a huge fan of kind candor.
Totally. Yes. And I feel like when you do those kinds of things, you find that everyone actually wants to be a part of that team because they know they've got their guardrails. They're like, if I act within these guardrails and I can ask for support to make sure I do better. And my leader, my team leader needs to be mentoring me, right? They don't just leave me alone. They need to be mentoring me to do even better and succeed even better. So it gives you like these like audit opportunities over and over within your system that feel really fun, and it builds a lot of internal leadership.
Yeah. What an exciting place that you've been able to navigate yourself to. But, I just want to highlight again that you are kind of the exception. There would be a business owner that would, the idea of changing how you did things was too painful. There's then like the hurdle of, oh, I told the team and they cried, let's walk it back so that everybody feels good. Like all these different places where you're pushing forward and seeing the possibility and the potential and experiencing, the growing pains and the wobbles as you change and shift. But going forward anyways, again, I just want to recognize that and celebrate that. And you're getting now some of the benefits. One thing that I would add, because I agree, anybody that says they don't care about money and they're not, independently wealthy, I'm like, really? It doesn't matter at all. I focus a lot on incentive alignment. And a big part of that's compensation and in terms of money. But there are other levers that people actually really care about. And I think one of the ones that you knowingly or unknowingly tapped into is, again, people want to know what to expect in their job. And that is tremendously like a selling point for you and your business. And I'll just speak to your business for a second, and was also the same at pro.com. You work in these job sites that are chaos, and it's like you never know what you're going to get, you never know where you're going to go. Like you show up and the supplies aren't there, you're not ready to actually execute, you're bogged down chasing things. And if you can say we've got a process and you know what to expect and you know how to progress in this company, even if you sell or you pay them the same or less, that is a trade-off that I'm going to look at, certainly, because I just want to know what to expect. I want to be able to focus on what I'm here to do, which is, like frame or, excavate or whatever that is, and go home. And so there's different things that you can bring to the table that incentivize people a lot. And again, there's others, like I don't ever want to manage people, but I want to keep being able to move up in your company, or I do want to manage people and I want to keep moving up. So just finding those little things, and again, aligning those for your people is tremendously powerful.
I'm curious, like, how this all kind of lands with you, Bethany, because you run a different business than mine.
It's a different, but I'm nodding along. There are so many resonant echoes that matter in the design studio world as well. There are all these business models and the ways to do it, but really, like if your heart is in trying to grow your thing in a thoughtful way and take good care of people, it really does come down to being intentional about your metrics, about your purpose and your vision and what you're all here to do. To emphasize, it's really a gift and a challenge and an excitement to be here building business in a really thoughtful way. And I also have this experience. I was curious to ask you, David, also about not just the seller's perspective and growing and kind of cleaning up operations in a legible way so that it's valuable as a product, as a business to purchase, but also on the buyer's end of it. I was curious how often it sounds like you are often maybe buyer, but are you also mentoring buyers? Because again, there's this whole climate of folks that are aging out of thoughtful quality businesses, and like where are all the people feeling empowered to step into being a purchaser of a business and then running it? And I'm curious a little bit about that advice that you would give for people excited to think about buying.
If I can be totally transparent, like I don't want it to just be about money. And what I've started to realize and started to reframe those thoughts around is I really don't want to be selfish about money, but I really don't want to be reckless. I don't want to be a reckless business owner. And so I'm a steward. And it would be irresponsible of me to make changes that are good for people that ultimately aren't sustainable or good for the business. And that's, comes back to good stewardships. And so I was actually counseling a business owner in the last 4 months who like it was really important to him to offer benefits to his first employee straight out of the gate. And he's getting this business off the ground. And I strongly counseled him. I was like, I love where your heart's at. I also share that heart. I think it would be a massive mistake to do that from the outset because you can't sustain it. You don't have the revenue yet. Sadly, he's had to cut his hours, right? Is that kind, loving, all the things that we want to be? To me, I would argue that um, you have to be really thoughtful about that trade-off.
Absolutely. So it's just like letting the numbers be your guide.
Hmm.
Is
Hmm.
kind of what I'm hearing.
And again, you can make the same decision from two different heart places, right? Like I want to see that percent margin, or I want to pocket it, and that's why, or I want to see us thrive and be okay and sustain, the uncertainty that's going on in our economy right now. And that's why the same outcome coming from a different place entirely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
I can respect that, and I think that was my failure as a business owner for a long time was wanting to take care of people, to the fault of the business. Where like we were just straight up paying to be in business. We were doing over $1 million a year, and we were still paying for people's projects for a couple of reasons. Because I wanted to charge a certain amount, but it wasn't the amount that needed to be charged to actually do the work, and also because I wanted to take care of people, right? And so like when I looked back at the numbers, like the KPI was the thing that was missing, right? Which was like allowing people to be responsible for themselves and empowering people to be responsible for themselves and being the backup cheerleader, the ritual creator, the systems creator, the one who is really kind of conducting the orchestra and, giving giving the people the power. And I think when we put ourselves as an owner in the seat where we want to manage everyone and we think we can do it better, we're really doing ourselves a disservice and we're doing our team a disservice because people want to be good at what they're doing and people want to succeed. And if you give them the keys to the castle, they will build you a whole new room. I think a lot of that mindset comes from working with people like you, working with Tony Robbins. Like I was lucky enough that I was 16 when I showed up at my first Tony Robbins event.
What?
And yeah, walked on fire because I had an aunt who was a badass queer matriarch of my family, business owner, and she was a platinum. And she was like, "You're coming with me to go do Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within," and that was pivotal to my my entire life. Um, but it wasn't until about a year ago that I kind of picked that back up in a way that was serious, and I started to actually pay for coaching because when you start to pay for things, you actually do it, right? And then like financially, it wasn't probably the best decision in my business's life, but it looking back, it absolutely was. And so I spent $36,000 on coaching last year. I've already spent 10 this year, you know? And I just want people to know the value that they get out of coaching and a lot there's so much noise in coaching. So I want you to like talk a little bit about what it's like to work with you because I know you're also in coaching. That's how we met.
Yeah. I am in coaching and I got into coaching on accident. Again, I wanted to help people, but, and I was helping people a lot. I was like, maybe this is valuable to somebody and they would pay for this. Um, so there's a couple of different paths. Like I certainly do, I think Bethany, you asked earlier, mentioned earlier, like, do I help people buy businesses or like learn to buy businesses? And yes, I do have like a weekly group that I lead. and I'm teaching, I'm holding people accountable and helping them learn and connecting them with resources that I've developed over the years to help them buy businesses. But I think a lot of the work that I do is more focused on the one-to-one with the owner founder. And it can be as little as once a month, I'm checking in and measuring again against deliverables that we've agreed to together to see like what's the progress. It could be an hour a week, right? It's kind of depends on like what kind of changes a business owner needs to and wants to make and their willingness to invest in that. And I think the worst thing I'll just share is, I'm really focused on not working with anybody who doesn't actually want to change or they want like that band-aid fix. Like they think that hiring a coach or working with an exit advisor or whatever that is going to be the silver bullet that solves their problem. And they're not willing to navigate discomfort, pain, fear, change, ultimately, all those things that come with change that keep you from ultimately breaking through to the benefit. And so, my intake, and then along the way, I'm measuring like, is this person implementing it? Because I don't want to take your money. I don't want to, enable somebody that's just going to, um, take and operate from a scarcity mindset, and we're not going to do the work. So those are a couple of things that I would highlight.
I think that people also should know that, like, coaching doesn't mean that a coach does the work for you. They actually just coach you to make sure you're doing the work and telling you how to look at things.
Yeah, I usually start with the roadmap. I'll give you the roadmap, and you can do it yourself. And if you want help implementing that roadmap, I'm there to ensure that like I'm going to share the pitfalls. The like here's where what normally derails people. Here's some things that like mindset challenges. I'll help you navigate that, but I'm not going to do it for you. Absolutely, great call out.
I wanna talk lightly just because of your involvement with Dan Martell's coaching program on, like, AI and how we're all starting to see it come into our business and where you think that people should, like, kind of start with. I mean, really right now it's about agents and maybe some ways that you're starting to see how people are smartly implementing AI within their operations.
I wouldn't, I think, offer anything, groundbreaking in terms of like where do you dip your toe into the water with AI in terms of like, well, start chatting with it, start asking it questions, start having it like look through your client proposals or emails and seeing if there's anything in your language that can be like reworked that's going to hold you back or keep you from having the intended outcome that you want. So that's like a thin edge of the wedge I'd start with. One recommendation that is almost automatic to small businesses, especially in the construction space, is the implementation of an AI voice agent. If your business relies on Google relevancy, you want, a landscaper near me, and then you start calling down the line, right? Um, a missed phone call is tremendously expensive. And it's also difficult to pay somebody to sit there and always answer the phone. I know people that absolutely have somebody on their staff that's like, I don't care if it's midnight, if your phone goes off, you're answering it because that's a lead. AI can do a tremendous job of ensuring it never misses a phone call. It always asks for their contact information. Like all these key areas where you would have to train somebody and hold them to a KPI, the agent's going to be able to navigate without sacrificing, I think, the connection. And I think most business owners, that's one of those mindset issues. It's like, oh, but I want a real person to connect. I want to connect with them. Great. You don't have to be the one that writes down their phone number and contact information. Like literally the agent, you don't have to be even you can be completely transparent. Like, hey, I'm just here to answer your call, get your contact information, ask a couple basic questions. Oh gosh, based on what you've shared, I'm going to escalate this to our subject matter expert, Brittany. She's like the owner. She's fabulous, and she'll probably reach out within the next day. Is there a good time that we can schedule that for? Right? Just doing the admin stuff really well and consistently for you. That should be almost an automatic again for anybody that relies on Google relevancy.
I love that. I'm not doing that, so I'm gonna pick that one up too.
I'm
Thanks.
Yes,
not
I love
doing
it.
that, but I'm in the mindset trap, but also I'll be the contrarian in my moment. I still pay someone to be a thoughtful human That's me being my little thing back into it. I know this is an evolving conversation.
I think that still is important. I mean, one of the ways that I thought about like that we're implementing AI in our design process is like looking at the things that are replicable, like building out plant material boards and material boards, like something that takes our team 2 to 3 hours to actually sit down and do and is a billable task. And then actually seeing how we could use that 2 to 3 hours to create a better human connection. Like, so one of the things that we don't do with every client is we don't go to the nursery with every client because it's 2 to 3 hours of time, right? It's charging them and like, we're going to get to the answer. But you know what that does is it creates empowerment within the client and it creates connection and makes them a part of the story. It gives them ownership, right? And they want to be there. Who doesn't want to pick out their flowers, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so it was like leveraging where to use AI and create automations and use Claude Cowork to do that task. And then looking at that time as not lost or not billable, but actually creating more connection.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, I can
absolutely.
think about that, like moving from abacus to calculator for certain tasks where it's like, well, of course, if that's a fast processing thing to get done, and then I'm still over in my what's alive and human that we keep hold of, and that's a perfect example. Spend your time with your client, with the living plant material. Like, let that be the thing that shines because that's the heart of your project.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You know, and if you already like employ somebody to answer your phone, what else could they be doing again to deepen that connection where it's like, okay, now that I have the AI voice agent's notes, maybe I'm taking my time to go and research them and their business and understand, you know, their specific needs so that when the person gets on the phone, now there's more context and that's adding value to the conversation. So there's a number of different ways you can approach it.
How can we find you? I want to know, I want people to know how to like be with you as a resource.
Thank you. I try to be easy to find, and I am most active on Instagram, and you can find me at the David Hori. David Hori is Hori, and I post all of my best stuff there. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this, Brittany, in previous conversations, but I launched a webinar for business owners where I share basically shed light on the landscape of what does it mean to sell your business, what's involved, and what kind of things should you be thinking through. Again, whether you intend to sell or not, knowledge brings clarity, and clarity gives you optionality. And so I do that every Thursday, and I'm happy to share a link to that in case anybody in your audience wants to connect and learn. And it's free. It's every Thursday, and that's something that I also you can find me there.
Fantastic. I mean, I love this and thank you so much for being here. It's been such a treat. I really just appreciate this being a part of the whole sustainability of our industry as a conversation. It might seem off as it's not just like, you know, experts in the industry, but this is an expertise that needs to be front of mind for our industry, especially as we go forward as some of the most purchasable businesses now that AI has really started to infiltrate the world.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you for creating such a wonderful landscape to have this conversation. And again, it's tremendously energizing to talk with someone who has cultivated openness and opportunity in their lives. And this is my favorite conversation to be a part of. So thank you.
so nice to meet you, David. Thanks for your time.
Likewise. Thank you.